Hi there, my name's Brian Rennie, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background in fashion and hopefully give you some pointers to help your business in these difficult times. It's kind of a weird beginning, but it started with a whore in a corset in a cowboy film and with Cilla Black. Strange combination, you might think, but for a 12-year-old boy living in a council house in Dundee, this was a life changer that put me on a fashion journey that would lead me to meet rock stars, Hollywood actors, top models, and dress some of the most famous celebrities on the red carpet. I always used to love drawing as a kid, and while watching a cowboy film one Saturday afternoon, I was totally intrigued by the saloon girls' dresses and started to draw this. And once I saw that you could change some things and make them more interesting, make them better, this got me really, really excited. So I started to sketch these outfits and again and again. And that evening I was watching Cilla Black show, and she used to wear these amazing dresses. And I started to sketch her outfits and realized that this could be a lot of fun, making the changes to the designs. And how would I to know that years later, Cilla Black would actually become a huge fan of my designs and wore them regularly on her TV show Surprise, Surprise. She would actually go on to spend hours in our Escada boutique in Sloane Street in London, in the VIP area, choosing her outfits. And it was actually quite an expensive thing because she did like a little glass of champagne every now and then. Once I found out you could actually study fashion, after I saw on the evening news a program about Bill Gibb, this designer who came from a small farm up in Scotland, in the north of Scotland. This got me really, really excited, and I thought that's what I want to do. I wanted to be a fashion designer. I received a lot of encouragement at school from my art teacher at Harris Academy, and my mum was dead against me being a designer. She wanted me to get a proper job. It was a long, long fight, but she finally came around, and you can imagine I was the only boy at school interested in fashion, so I got a lot of stick, but I didn't care. I knew what I wanted to do. And I basically taught myself how to sew. My granny taught me how to knit, and I spent every free minute that I could doing this. My mum was actually so against me doing fashion that she tried everything possible to stop me from doing it. But in the end, she actually came around, and I think she was actually quite happy. She became, I think, the best dressed woman in Scotland with a wardrobe full of Escada clothes. Every time she came over to one of the fashion shows, she would go home with suitcases full of clothes. I studied fashion for 3 years at Ravensbourne College of Art in South London, where I got my BA. And then I was accepted for a master's at the Royal College of Art in London, which was no mean feat because around 160 students applied for only 15 places. The excitement of being accepted at college quickly turned to disappointment because I realised I wasn't going to get a grant from Scotland. In those days, once you had a grant for a BA, they wouldn't give you a grant for an MA outside of Scotland. So I thought I would actually have to give up. But my college took pity on me and arranged to pay the fees. And they also gave me one day off a week to go and work with one of the tutors, which was actually really good because it gave me very quickly a lot of experience. And this one day off a week made me able to pay my rent, basically. So thankfully, the college had a lot of things in place to help students like myself. Money was really tight. I spent a lot of my time living on baked beans, or if I was being really posh, with spaghetti with a splash of Worcester sauce. But the college was really amazing. It was the best time ever. They had fabulous contacts with people abroad. All these different companies came in and gave us some projects. One week it was a project with Donna Karan. The next week it was with Max Mara. The next week it was with a jeans company. And that gave me a lot of experience very, very quickly. And the Royal College was really good because it showed you what it was really like to work in the industry. And because of all these projects that we did, there was a lot of opportunity to win competitions. I won one competition for a jeans company, and the prize was a trip, all expenses paid, to Hong Kong, which was really amazing. And then another competition that I won was the opportunity to work with these amazing Swiss fabrics. We were taken over to Switzerland, given the opportunity to choose anything we want from these amazing factories, and then put together a fashion show. Another competition I won was a dress was produced for Harvey Nichols. There was a hat that was produced for British Home Stores. And I spent one of my holidays in Milan working with this company where Giorgio Armani was the designer. So it was really, really amazing experience. The last holiday that I had at the Royal College of Art, I was given the opportunity to go over and work for 3 months with Daniel Hechter in Paris doing menswear. And this was my very first experience of working backstage at a fashion show. And this was so exciting. And this really, really confirmed what I wanted to do. Just before the end of year show, where we had to put on a fashion show at the Royal College of Art, we were told that Margareta Lai from Escada was coming in to interview for designers. I was actually asked not to go in for the interview because I had 3 job opportunities already, one of them in Hong Kong, one of them in Milan, and one of them in London. But I really wanted to go in and say hello to Margareta because just a few years before, when I was in the first year at college, a friend of mine who was in the 3rd year, Karen, we always used to have to help the 3rd year students with their collection, and she had actually been offered a job at Escada. So I wanted to go in and just say hello to Karen. So I went in and talked to Margareta. She asked to see my portfolio. And I think she must have been quite impressed because she asked me if I'd like to come over to Munich to see the fashion show. So a week later, they flew me over to Munich. I was supposed to stay just for a few days in a hotel, but ended up staying a week on Karen's sofa because I love Munich and I wanted to get to know more about Munich and more about the company. And this was so amazing. They actually offered me a job straight away. So in September of 1986, I started working as a designer in Munich. At the time, it was a very small design team in a huge company. And because there was only very few of us, we were doing everything. We were not just doing design, we were organizing photo shoots, organizing fashion shows, putting together the shows worldwide, merchandising flagship stores. And the first big fashion show we had when I joined was in December that year. It was an amazing show where we had hundreds of guests, and I went home very excited to spend Christmas with my family in Dundee. While I was in Dundee, I got a phone call from Margareta Lai saying that as I was so good with the models at the fashion show, she would love to take me with her to the photo shoot in New York in January. And if I was interested, she would organize a visa for me, and I'd have to plan to be away for 2 weeks. So I was so excited. My very first trip to New York, picked up in a huge stretch limousine with a box of cookies in the back, champagne bottle, a cheese platter. It was like, wow, what a welcome to New York. We checked into the Plaza Hotel in New York and unpacked the 30 or so overseas trunks that we had with us. And at this time, Margareta was paranoid about the collection being stolen. So although we had these beautiful rooms in the Plaza Hotel in New York, we couldn't really enjoy them because the side of my bed was piled up high with trunks. We had rolling racks of clothes in our room. We had to steam the collection in our bathroom. So it wasn't at all very, very glamorous, but I didn't care. I was in New York and I was going to a photo shoot with some of these amazing top models that I'd only seen from the pages of Vogue. But the next morning was a lesson on how hair and makeup can really change a person. I was in the lift on the way up to the studio of Albert Watson. Now, Albert Watson was a very, very famous photographer, fashion photographer in New York at this time, and he was actually a Scotsman. We had a connection. He actually lived and worked in Dundee for a while, and his wife Liz came from Dundee. So we became actually very good friends over the years. Anyway, on the lift up to his studio downtown in New York was this quite dumpy looking girl, and awful hair, bad skin, her legs weren't very nice. And she got off on the same floor as I did, to the studio. And I thought, oh, she must just work in the studio. This was, in fact, one of our models for the day. It was Iman, the top model of the time, who later went on to become Mrs. David Bowie. So a big surprise for me how someone as dumpy and boring looking could actually be a top model. I've worked with most of all the supermodels: Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista, Naomi Campbell, Claudia Schiffer, Heidi Klum, Carla Bruni. Now Carla, she was a character. A crazy aristocrat from one of the best families in Italy, who spoke with a very, very posh English accent. And she loved flirting with men. She was completely unself-conscious, would prance around naked in the photo studio, not caring who came in at all, giving the delivery guys an eyeful sometimes. She didn't care. It's strange to think she actually went on to become the First Lady of France when she married Nicolas Sarkozy. I worked with her many times, flew her into Munich to do fashion shows, used her a lot of time in our catalogues. On another shoot, I could actually hear her having a bit of an argument on the phone with someone. And after she hung up, she told me it was actually Jerry Hall who was on the phone telling her to keep away from Mick Jagger. What we didn't know at the time was she was actually having an affair with Mick Jagger. So we found out before it was actually in the papers. But this was a good thing about being on these photo shoots here. You got a lot of scandal firsthand. And some years later, I actually worked with Jerry Hall. We'd opened a boutique with a partner in Istanbul, and he'd asked us if we would fly in a top model, and asked specifically for Jerry Hall. I really didn't want Jerry. I didn't think she was that special, but he insisted. So I phoned around and called up different agencies till we finally got hold of the agent of Jerry Hall, and we flew her in. Because she wasn't a regular model size at the time, I had to make all the clothes extra for her that she was going to be wearing in the fashion show. And she had a lot of fun. We treated her like a star. And she loved the clothes. And I said, if you want to take anything, help yourself. And she actually left Istanbul with cases full of clothes and shoes and handbags. We got on great, and I invited her. The next week, we had a table at the BAFTA Awards in London. And we invited her to join us at the table. So she came, and at this event, we had a lot of fun. And my PR girl said, why don't you invite Jerry to the CFDA dinner? Now, the CFDA dinner is like the fashion Oscars in New York. And everybody kind of tries to outdo themselves who is the best people at their table. So we invited Jerry. She said yes, she'd love to come. She was actually going to be in New York at that time. And we'd invited Jane Seymour and her husband. We had J.F. Kennedy Jr. confirmed to sit at our table. So we already had good people. But I didn't want Jerry to feel uncomfortable. So I said, you don't really know us that well. So if you'd like to bring along a friend to dinner, that's fine. You feel more secure if it's with someone you know. She said, yeah, no problem. I had no idea who she was coming, who she was bringing. So I'd arranged to pick up Jerry in a stretch limousine. I was given the address. I went to this townhouse, rang the doorbell, was opened by a butler. I was taken up to the living room, given a glass of champagne. Then Jerry came down wearing a dress that I designed for her. She was standing in front of this beautiful gilt mirror doing her hair. And I said, Jerry, you really have to go. It's really tight now. Yeah, absolutely, Brian. Just wait a second. Mick's on his way down. And I'm like, who's Mick? In what, Mick Jagger? Hello, Brian. Nice to meet you. So, of course, there's me, not a big fan of the Rolling Stones at all. But I knew, Mick Jagger was going to create havoc when we arrived. But anyway, we got in the limo. So I'm in the limo with Mick and Jerry. The big love affair of the moment, the press were going crazy about them. So, of course, when the limo door opened at the location, we came out, the press, the paparazzi went mad, screaming Mick and Jerry's name. Jerry grabbed my hand, pulled me along, and this was crazy. You know, this little guy from a council house in estate in Dundee being, you know, dragged through the paparazzi by Mick Jagger and Jerry Hall. But this was amazing. But even more crazy was the reaction to our table. You know, here we had Mick Jagger sitting next to Jerry Hall and JFK Jr., so our table was mobbed the whole night. And a big kick I got out of this was when I went to the toilet, I was coming back, and Angela Bassett, who'd become a good friend of mine, she ran over to me. Now, I'd actually invited Angela to join us for dinner that night, but she'd accepted an invitation from another designer that I was a bit miffed about because, as I say, we'd become good friends and she wore me a lot this time. Anyway, as I was coming back from the loo, she jumped on me and said, "You have Mick Jagger at your table and JFK, would you introduce me? I'm big fans." So I got such a big kick out of introducing them both at our table. I'd actually met Angela some months before in Beverly Hills when we redesigned the Beverly Hills boutique. And I have to say, by this time, Margareta had become such an important part of my life. She was a big mentor for me. All of a sudden, she became very sick and she died. And all of a sudden, after 8 years on the job in Munich, I was made design director, taking her place. You know, after joining straight from college, I'd worked my way up slowly, but never ever expected that I would be made responsible for a business that turned over millions and millions every year. One of the first things I did when I was in charge was to introduce the Escada Couture label, a collection of mega expensive evening dresses, a lot of them made to order for society women worldwide, and this became immediately a huge success. The society women went crazy for these dresses, and we had to redesign many boutiques to make space for this new collection, and one of the boutiques was the Beverly Hills boutique. I'd actually added a VIP room in the Beverly Hills boutique, which gave the top customers a chance to look at these amazing dresses in a very, very private location. And also one of the reasons I did this was I'd read that Giorgio Armani was doing a VIP dressing room. I had no idea what it was for and how important it was, but I thought we have to have one too. Angela Bassett was actually one of the very first celebrities to come and view the new couture collection in these new surroundings, and she selected a dress to wear to the Oscars. And this was the start of a very long and good friendship. She wore my dresses many, many times on the red carpet, and we'd often meet for lunch when I was in LA or New York. And I was totally thrilled when she asked me if I would design her wedding dress. She worked together with a very famous stylist, Philip Bloch, and he and I got on great. We kept in touch over the years, so when he asked me a few years later if I'd be interested in designing a wedding dress for another celebrity, of course I said yes, without knowing who the celebrity was. All I knew is she was a relatively new, unknown actress who was doing a movie. He said she was going to be big, but he said he had a big problem trying to get someone to dress her because as she was an unknown, everybody slammed the door in his face and said, "No, we're not interested." I was the only one who'd actually replied and said, "Yes, I'll do it," because of the relationship I had with him. It turned out that her wedding was actually covered by all the major news channels. InStyle covered it exclusively in print. It was all over the place. The unknown was in fact Jennifer Lopez. And her career soared after the film came out. So the international publicity I got for this was crazy. It's absolutely amazing, you know, designing Jennifer Lopez's wedding dress, the first wedding dress. But this was nowhere near the amount of press I got when Kim Basinger won her Oscar for LA Confidential. Unlike Philip Bloch, the stylist that Kim had chosen was a bit of a nightmare. Jessica Pastor was a stylist who I knew, and we dressed quite a few celebrities together over the years, including Minnie Driver, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and many more. But she was quite difficult. She'd seen an Escada ball gown on the cover of an American Vogue and asked me to make this same ball gown that was in floral taffeta to make this a black taffeta for Kim. Now, we had to rush this dress through really quickly. The timing was tight for the Oscars. So I decided to save time after the dress was made. I would send my assistant over to LA with the dress. And I told her, whatever you do, you hand carry this dress, don't check it in. Whatever they tell you on the plane, you hand carry it. She had to get a flight over Paris, and she didn't hand carry the dress. She checked it in. So with her connection, she arrived safely in LA. The dress didn't. But anyway, it doesn't really matter, because by the time she'd arrived in New York, I received another message from the stylist saying she changed her mind and she didn't want to wear this black ball gown anymore, that we'd quickly rushed through for a lot of money. She decided it was totally wrong for Kim and asked me to come up with some new ideas based on some Grace Kelly pictures. So I made these sketches, we sent them over very, very quickly for her to look at. She chose a dress for us to make. We carried on making this dress, hand beating it, doing everything we could to get it through as quickly as possible. Just as the dress was nearly finished, we received a message from the stylist again that Kim Basinger's husband, Alec Baldwin at the time, said no way can Kim wear a dress trying to look like Grace Kelly. Cancel, we have to do something else. I found out later actually that Kim and Alec were going through a very, very nasty separation, divorce, and he was making her life hell and called her every name under the sun and said, no way can you walk down the red carpet thinking you're Grace Kelly. So all this, private things going on. We didn't know this at the time, but it made our life very, very difficult. Anyway, panic stations. By this time, it was less than a week till the Oscars. We had absolutely, minimum amount of time. And I was actually leaving for the fabric fair in Paris and then was going straight on to a photo shoot in New York, in the Hamptons. So I decided the best thing would be to send my best pattern maker over to Los Angeles to make a dress for Kim in person. So we brought in some dressmakers from the Escada Boutique in Orange County. We set up a small mini atelier in the Beverly Wilshire Hotel. And the poor pattern maker was thrown in the deep end and almost made crazy by the stylist, who kept changing her mind. Now, I was on the East Coast in the Hamptons on a photo shoot with a 3-hour time difference. We had our stylist in New York being driven crazy over there. And we were sending sketches back and forward, trying to get things sorted out at the time, and having fittings in the evening, and every dress that was made was not what Kim was looking for. We finally found out that the stylist was not talking to Kim. So we finally got hold of Kim personally and said, what do you want? We had one last chance of getting the dress right, and we had to pull out all the stops to do that. So we got the information straight from Kim. She wanted a seafoam green dress. Now, I mean, seafoam green, what is seafoam green, So I sent my dressmaker to every single fabric store that we could find in Los Angeles. She bought up all different shades of green, thinking that one of them would be right. And then finally they agreed on a color, on fabric. And by this time, my pattern maker and the sewing girls are going crazy. They'd been up, half the night trying to get things done. And I thought everything was going to fall through, but I said, whatever you have to do, we have to get a dress on Kim's back. I will send you to a spa for a week. You can have as many treatments as you want, but get that bloody dress made for Kim. She did. Now, they worked throughout the night, all three of them, to get this dress made. They had a midnight fitting. They had to make changes. Now, you won't actually see a picture of Kim Basinger on the red carpet doing interviews that year, because my dressmaker was in the back of the limousine with her sewing the hem of the dress, and she arrived very, very late and had to rush straight through. But she went on to win the Oscar, and the press went crazy. And even today, when there's any reports about the Oscars, it's always a picture of Kim Basinger suit. So we got unlimited amount of publicity. It was amazing, amazing. Press worth millions and millions of dollars. Now, while at Escada, I used to have to take part in trunk shows for Neiman Marcus. Trunk shows is where you take a certain part of the collection over to show it straight to the customers. And often it's things that Neiman Marcus didn't buy. You can imagine the collection is so big they can't buy everything. But these trunk shows was an opportunity to give the really, really top customers the opportunity to buy something special, maybe things that are more expensive. And it was a really tough week. It was a week that meant you were every day in a different place. It could be, Monday you're in Chicago, next day you're in Boston, next day you're in San Diego, next day you're in Los Angeles. So it was turn up to the event, unpack everything, sail for a few hours, pack it up again, and go to the airport. It was a crazy week, but in this week we would do $6 to $7 million worth of extra business. Now, I met the craziest type of customers on this trip, you cannot imagine. One of them had an automatic rack, like in the dry cleaners. We have this button, this handheld thing where you can have a rack that went round and round. She had this built into her dressing room. And she was so paranoid about hanging things up wrong or wearing them wrong. She had this system installed where, there was a jacket, a trouser, a skirt, hanging with the shoes, hanging with the jewelry, everything hung up perfectly. She was so paranoid to make a mistake. If I'd said, for instance, you could wear this trouser with 2 different outfits, she would buy the trouser twice and hang it up in perfect outfits so that she would never, ever make a mistake. Really, really crazy. So many women I met were actually terrified of making a mistake and looking wrong, These were either very, very successful businesswomen in their own right, or they were wives of successful businesswomen, politicians, who always had to be perfectly dressed, had to, represent themselves or their husbands at official events. So they would rely on people like the saleswomen at Neiman Marcus to give them the perfect look. The power of celebrity. Now, we just can't get enough of them nowadays. TV, magazines, bloggers, everyone is interested in what the celebrities wear, how they dress. And then many years ago, the actors and actresses actually used to only have one job, the actors. That was their job. That's what they had to do. But now they've become spokesperson for events, a spokesperson for products, they endorse products. And they always are expected to be perfectly dressed, And probably the most terrifying thing we have to do is the red carpet. The red carpet walk, is this going to turn into the walk of fame or the walk of shame, depending on how they're dressed and what the comments are going to be. These events they go to are sometimes watched, like the Oscars, by millions and millions of people. And they're terrified of making doing something wrong, or making the wrong decision. Many stars know exactly what they want to wear, and they don't need to hold on to a lot of people to be with them when they make this selection. You've got others who are completely insecure and require a whole team of style advisors, PR people to come with them. One of the most bizarre things I ever had was when we had what I call a C-class celebrity come to look at the dresses. She came in actually with 10 people to look at a selection of dresses I'd made for her. Why do you need 10 people to look at a dress? A nutritionist, she had with her. She had her personal fitness instruction with her. She had, it was crazy the amount of people she had with her. And she was so insecure. I was designing dresses for her on the spot. She said, I didn't want to wear a black dress. I don't want to wear a ball gown. So everything that, she said she didn't want to wear, I wasn't sketching. In the end, she decided to go with another designer, and what did she wear in the end? Black ball gown. Everything she said she didn't want to wear. Crazy. But you get other people like Angela Bassett, Gina Davis, Jane Seymour, Mariah Carey, Halle Berry, Annette Bening, they came alone to choose their dress. They knew what they wanted. Sometimes they would come with one best friend or their husband, boyfriend, whatever. But they always looked $1 million because they knew what suited them. Princess Diana became a great customer. She would stop the car right in front of the boutique on New Bond Street, would jump into the Escada boutique and would actually buy the clothes. She never asked for a discount. She never asked, for stuff to be sent, for a trial. She came in, she selected the clothes very quickly. She was great, not unlike Fergie, who insisted that things be sent to the palace and then would not pay the bills or ask for things to be, given a huge discount or on loan. Celine Dion, she was amazing. She would come into the boutique in Palm Beach and buy things herself. She would buy lots of presents for her family, for her friends, for her staff. Madonna actually once stopped the car outside the boutique as well in London, sent in her assistant because she saw some Swarovski crystal sandals in the window as she was in a traffic jam, and the assistant came in and bought them for her. It was crazy, These people, they had the confidence to do it alone. They knew what they wanted. They knew what suited them, and that made it so much easier. Many stars really feel the need to use a stylist when it comes to the big events. The problem is many of these stylists have become such big stars themselves that they do not look at the dresses, sometimes in a uncritical, or they look at them in an unfair way sometimes. And many of these, stars, celebrity stars, celebrity stylists have actually become stars themselves and turned into tyrants. Many become greedy, arrogant, so full of themselves, and the celebrities merely become a pawn in their game, of pitting one designer against another. One stylist I knew, for instance, was offered a car from an Italian designer if she would put one of their dresses on the back of a celebrity. Another designer asked if they could help with a mortgage, paying off the mortgage to get someone in their Oscar dress. It's crazy. I mean, nowadays, celebrities are flown in to sit in the first row with an entourage of people to sit in the front row of a fashion show in Paris. They're given contracts to wear a dress. They're given makeup contracts. They're getting clothes and money thrown at them. They're getting yachts, private palazzos, holidays, if they wear dresses. I'm really, really proud to say I never, ever once paid 1 penny or $1 for a celebrity to wear my dresses. They wore them because they liked them or they liked me. The personal relationship, I think, was very, very important at the time. But actresses now have big competition from what I call the new iPhone celebrities. Anyone with a camera on their phone now thinks they can be an influencer. Influencers are quoted by the fashion companies nowadays the way celebrities were in the past. They're flown in to sit in the front row at events. They're wined and dined, and sometimes even give contracts to promote the products. Some influencers are paid to say they've designed a collection when they haven't even touched it. All they've done is, sat in front of the camera and said, "Isn't this amazing?" It's crazy. It drives me mad, actually. As a designer who had 5 years of training and over 30 years of experience in the business, to see these kids nowadays with a camera, they are given a selection of items that are pre-designed by an in-house buying team who make sure they're buying things as cheap as possible, in Asia probably, in China, adding a huge markup. A top that's bought in China, for instance, for £5 will be photographed in a luxurious location by this blogger or influencer, and then flogged for 50, 60 quid to the consumer, to the millions and millions of Instagram followers. It's a crazy system. I'm not a big fan of most influencers. There have been so many stories of influencers who have faked the amount of followers they have. What proof do you have that they have these millions of followers? are these millions of followers really, really going to be swayed by what this influencer says, you know? I think people are becoming a lot more savvy now to this phenomena. I have a very famous friend in Germany, for instance, a TV star, ex-footballer's wife who does a lot of TV shows in Germany. She makes a fortune in Instagram posts. Skincare one day, champagne the next, hotels, sunglasses, mobile phone, fitness machines, hotels, whatever. You know, you name it, for a price, she will mention this on her Instagram feed. I mean, good for her, she makes a fortune out of it. But I, for one, know that she would never be seen dead using half of these products. You know, I know her well. She just does it for the money. And I really have followers that fickle that they don't realise this also. I think things are changing now and people are realising this is really a blatant money-making operation. Thankfully, the younger generation are becoming much more aware of the harm being done to the planet, to the environment, on the back of fast fashion, which most often means throwaway fashion. They're questioning the Primarks of this world. They're much more aware of this, you know, throwaway after one wear top that costs £1 or £2. It can only be produced by squeezing every last penny out of every different operation you can. You know, whether it's the sewing, whether it's the shipping, whether it's, you know, distribution, whatever. Everyone is squeezed to make as much profit as possible out of this £1 or £2 top. The trend now is thankfully very much into sustainable fashion, buying less, buying quality goods that will last. And while much of the fashion industry is really suffering at the moment, suffering from the biggest loss in profit ever, seen with store closures all the time, businesses going bust all the time, there are some really bright lights in the industry. Barbour, for me, is a perfect example of a brand that's built a fabulous reputation on long-lasting, good quality products. These products appeal to all different age groups, from all different walks of life. From the Queen to Alexa Chung at a festival, Barbour's got a truly universal appeal. They consistently increase profits every year because they know exactly what they stand for, and they do not ever deviate from this path. Now that's key. Trying to please everyone and changing constantly to try and follow trends will only lead to disaster. At Escada, we knew exactly what we stood for. Extravagant, luxurious, colourful, detailed, look-at-me fashion. There were times where the press did not like us at all, you know, but the customers loved us because we were giving them what they wanted. As trends changed, for instance, in the 90s, everything became, you know, understated, toned down, navy blue, black. There was the Japanese invasion, the minimalists like Joe Sander. These were the designers that were hyped in the press, and not Escada with this colourful animal prints and wild, over-the-top fashion. We were given almost no positive press at this time. But despite this, we had our boom years. Why? Because we stuck to our guns, we knew what we were doing, and we carried on giving the customers what they loved most. That was my vision for Escada, and it resonated with the customers. This would be one of my most important pieces of advice. Know what your business stands for, and everything you do should reflect this. Everything. Your internet presence is crucial. This is the potential customer's first impression of the brand, so the right imagery is going to be a deal breaker. Is the customer going to be intrigued by what she sees and continue to explore your site, or be turned off and click away very quickly? And people are impatient nowadays. If your website is too slow, they will give up and leave. I do this. If I'm on looking for something and something's taking too long and I'm watching something that's it. I'm out, you know. And I'm an older person. The younger ones are even more impatient. A big trick nowadays is you have to wake emotion. with your brand. Create an emotional connection to the customer and you have them. At Escada, we spent a lot of money and time creating the 200-page Escada magazine and advertising campaigns. We shot using only the top models, the best photographers, the best makeup artists, the best hairdressers in the most beautiful, luxurious locations around the world. Jamaica, Los Angeles, the Riviera, Paris, Milan, New York, Seville, Arizona, Miami. We went anywhere and everywhere to inspire and excite our customers and create this emotional bond with them. The magazine was actually our biggest selling tool. At this time, of course, there was no internet. It was the magazine, it was the physical magazine that was the biggest tool we had. The pictures were aspirational. They showed how the collection could fit into the lifestyles of our customers, and it really created this emotional bond. After 20 years with Escada, where it was really like a very close-knit family, although there was thousands and thousands of employees worldwide, it really was a family. But unfortunately, this time, there became a change in ownership. And from a family-run company to a company that was owned by a Russian investor who made the biggest mistake and ignored the cardinal rule: never change a winning team. The Russian owner decided he needed some changes. Although the company was very successful, with a huge positive turnover, he decided to bring in a new CEO who decided to bring in his own people and proceeded to change all the key people in the company and completely wiped out the soul of the brand. I was asked to leave, and although I came out with a very large financial settlement, it was so sad to see the company that at that time I'd spent half of my life with, and I loved so much, to go downhill so fast. When I left, we actually had a turnover of 650 million euros with a very large, healthy profit. Within less than 3 years, with 3 different CEOs, 2 different creative directors, the company went down to under 300 million euros and finally went bust with huge debts. Never change a winning team. Know what you stand for and stick to it. If you think, you're going to change and go with the flow and go and come up with, different direction overnight, it's never going to work. After Escada, I had a 1-year break in Scotland, bought and rebuilt a house in Dunoon, and then moved from Scotland to Stockholm to become creative director of Gant. After Escada, I really didn't want to do fashion anymore. I didn't want to stay in the fashion business. I figured that anything I do afterwards is not going to be as much fun. I'm never going to have the creative freedom that I had with Escada. I always turned down every call from Headhunter I received at this time. But then one day I got a call from Headhunter about Gant. And I was intrigued because I actually studied menswear at the beginning in college, changed to womenswear, and I was actually was allowed to do both for my degree. So I was the first one ever at the Royal College to be allowed to do menswear and womenswear. And the fact that Gant was so strong in menswear, I saw as a challenge. I thought this is something different. I always had this stamp on my head. I was Mr. Escada with these glamorous evening dresses, crazy, feminine, colourful, loud collection. And I was intrigued by the thought about doing menswear. I met the owners and the CEO, and less than a week later, I was in Stockholm as creative director of a brand that turned over roughly estimated brand sales of $1 billion. Coming from a brand like Escada, where I had 19 designers, I had to keep 45 pattern makers busy every day. I had a huge atelier with 40 seamstresses, so I was able to get things turned over very quickly. It was a culture shock going to Gant, where we had 70 people in the whole of the head office, as opposed to 800 in the head office at Escada. And Gant had no pattern makers. They had no atelier. Everything was done in factories all over the world. The collection was developed by product managers, not by designers. Each category had a product manager. So I had to completely change the way I worked, flying to the factories myself to make decisions in factories with the product developers and sign off the products to save time. But what I didn't change was the way I had always created the collection. The vision of the new collection is created very early on in the season, and for me, it was always a mix of the new fashion direction that I figured was important, mixed with commercial savvy. Now, I'm a designer who I think is quite unusual, as I've always been interested and aware of sell-in and sell-out figures. As soon as the collection plan was finalised, then I always pulled in every department to brief them on the new season. Whether it was the salespeople, visual merchandisers, marketing department, or advertising agencies, everyone knew where we were going with the collection at the beginning of the season, and they could start to prepare their part early in the season. And we worked in tandem, fashion collection, selling team, we all worked together as the collection developed. And when I presented the finished collection, then everything was prepared. The advertising campaign, the magazine, the window displays, in-store merchandising, all marketing materials were ready to show the buyers when they walked in that showroom. They weren't just seeing the collection, they were seeing the whole sales support for the season. Now, this advanced preparation made such a difference and definitely helped increase our sales. As a creative director, I was not just responsible for the collection, but everything to do with the creative aspects of the brand. Showroom presentation, shop design, packaging design, licensed products, visual merchandising, in-store merchandising, anything that involved my creative eye was my territory. And this is important for the brand. Although you do, of course, need fabulous teamwork, you always need that one person who has the last say on everything to make sure that everything comes together in a cohesive way. The way I like to say it is I was like the conductor. You know, you can have someone who plays the fabulous trombone, someone who plays the drums amazing, someone who plays the piano amazing, but in an orchestra, unless everyone is coming together, you're never going to have this perfect harmony. So I was like the conductor, making sure we made good music. After Gant, I moved back to Germany to become creative managing director at Basler. Now, I was brought in by to Basler by the investors who wanted a big splash in the press and a bit of a shake-up as they planned to sell the company in 3 or 4 years. I was originally interviewed as creative director and was offered the job to start a week later, basically. But the night before I was going to start, they called me and said they were also going to make me managing director, as they wanted no discussions on the new direction that they wanted me to take. So on one side, this was great, as I was able to very, very quickly reinvent the Basler brand and make many, many changes without having a lot of discussions in the team, and I had budget control over everything, so I could, rearrange the marketing spending that would give us a quicker, bigger splash, and get the message out to the customers very quickly. On the other hand, being a managing director meant that I spent a lot of time in board meetings, bank meetings, strategy meetings. It took so much time away from the creative work. Having a team of very close confidants meant that I could trust them to take care of my creative directions, and this was very important to me at the time. Now, Basler was a challenge, as it was known as quite a boring old lady brand, so I had to very quickly change people's conception of the brand. As the marketing budget was extremely small, I had to be clever and use my contacts from the past and use the power of celebrity dressing to create a buzz. I had stars such as Jennifer Lopez, Oprah Winfrey wearing dresses that I designed for them. I restructured the brand, going from 7 sub-labels to 1 collection with 4 sections geared towards different types of customers. The plan was to make it easy for the buyer to find what they were looking for. So I had white label for a sporty customer. I had the pink label was the classic customer, the black label was the Coke collection, and gold label was the fashion highlights. Now everything could be mixed together easily. Colours always match, but just each label you knew exactly. If I was a buyer looking for casual elements, I would go to white label. If I was an international customer who wanted high fashion, I would go to gold label and then pick things from other collections to mix together. With the gold label, this appealed to the international high fashion customer. And with this, for instance, I took the Bloomingdale's business in America from a $6 million business from when I first started to $24 million in 2 years. At Basler, something similar happened at Escada. New ownership changes, financial organizations all of a sudden, were in charge. And then I decided it's time to leave. I don't want to go through all this financial hoo-ha again. So I took the big step to leave and set up my own companies, I should say. Brian Rennie Couture and Fab Scots Limited. Brian Rennie Couture, I've been offering made-to-measure couture dresses for society ladies, celebrities, stars, private clients. And then I've been doing a lot of consulting for various brands, as varied as doing a collaboration with Barbour for the German market, Barbour x Brian Rennie, as well as launching a collection for a bathroom company in Germany. Now, these are very, very different areas, completely different: bathroom, Barbour, couture dresses. But the important thing is, when you have a creative eye, you can lend yourself to lots of different types of projects. And my next message would be, this creative eye is extremely important in getting your message across, whether it's packaging, whether it's online sales. Do not underestimate the importance of a good creative eye. The fashion business has changed so much now, and it's not always for the better. The internet has changed so many things. Fast fashion companies like Zara and H&M have killed off so many businesses. Luxury is still booming, but boosted, of course, by makeup, fragrance, and handbag sales. Luxury is a very difficult word, as it does not just mean expensive. The perception of luxury is changing. People expect experiences now. The key to luxury will always be centered around the idea of exclusivity. I just read yesterday a very interesting article in an e-tailer report. Affluent customers may be spending more on luxury goods and services than ever before, and they may still be using these purchases to help shape their identity. But increasingly, luxury is no longer defined only by concepts of quality, comfort, and elegance. Luxury expenditures are today going well beyond products that are expensive, produced by coveted brands or simply hard to get hold of. Today's high-earning consumers are looking for experiences that help them learn, differentiate themselves, express who they are, and have a purpose beyond comfort and pampering. Technology is playing an increasingly important role in this, and luxury brands will do well to make sure they are incorporating emerging tech such as artificial intelligence and augmented virtual reality experiences into their offering. Now, this is important. Ultimately, the concept of luxury is becoming less about products consumers want to own or places they want to visit, and more about who they want to be. Luxury brands that understand this and help their customers live up to self-actualization aspirations can give themselves a competitive advantage. It's the mid-level companies who have suffered the most recently. Brands that did not have a strong, unique, and personal handwriting or an emotional bond with the customer have gone bust. I'm so happy that now I have my own very successful Brian by Brian Rennie collection with Home Shopping Europe in Munich. And this is available exclusively in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. It's the most expensive fashion brand available in home shopping. More expensive and fashionable than any other brand available in America or even the UK. I saw the internet fashion companies seem to be booming and thriving. So I sent a short, quite cheeky email to the home shopping channel HSE24, and they immediately called me in for a meeting as they were intrigued. We did some brainstorming and signed a 5-year contract where they produce a collection under the name Brian by Brian Rennie. I own the name Brian and Brian Rennie, and I have complete creative control over the collection. They produce the collection and sell it exclusively on HSE24 through TV and online. I travel once or twice a month for between 2 and 6 live shows a day in Munich. Live show is 1 hour, so you're on live TV to millions of people. And this has introduced me to a totally different way of selling. Having live shows where you can immediately see the reaction of the customer to the collection gives you such a buzz. Best sellers are leather jackets for €500 and embellished jeans for around €160, so it's not cheap. We also added a home collection that's been relaunched this autumn with luxurious printed bedding, throws and cushions, as well as scented candles and decorative items. Now, I was really keen on introducing scented candles, although you would think for home shopping, TV shopping, scented candles, this must be a challenge to sell a product that's so much based on smell, something that you cannot actually smell on TV. But this isn't an issue if you create and awake enough emotion around the product. This takes me back to this emotional connection to the customer. I've even managed to sell 5,000 bottles of my first perfume, Wild Glamour by Brian Rennie, at €80 a bottle. Imagine selling a fragrance on TV that no one can smell. But by creating a story around the fragrance and giving the inspiration behind the juice, we made this connection with the customer, and it resonated with the customer. We were able to sell 5,000 bottles, no problem. Be open to new ways of selling. No one had ever sold a sheepskin coat for €1,500 on home shopping before. We took the chance and it sold. It's really great to be based back in Scotland and to see how much untapped potential there is out there. The love affair with Scotland has never been stronger, especially in Europe, where Scotland's stand on Brexit was featured so prominently in many news programmes. Every time I travel, people will say, "Oh, you're from Scotland. Oh, it's amazing, yeah. And Brexit, yeah, and the Scots want to stay with us." You know, this is something to use to your advantage. Wherever I go throughout the world, wherever I've been, as soon as you say you're from Scotland, people get so excited. They talk about trips that they've had, where they met these fabulous people and people are so friendly, or they talk about a dream trip that they've always wanted to make to Scotland. They see Scottish products as often quality, and they love the rich heritage that we have. The romance of Scotland is not to be underestimated in attracting new business. The challenge is to go beyond the classic whisky and shortbread image. Develop and market products with a more modern appeal. In this design Instagram-led age, the visual power of your message needs to be strong and unique. It's so exciting to see the creativity coming out of Scotland nowadays, with cool, trendy packaging on whisky, gin, craft beers, artisan chocolate, taking a traditional product but giving it a modern twist through new packaging opens the door to a whole new generation of customers. Telling the unique story behind the product cannot be stressed enough. You need to stand out from the crowd. Whatever you do it well and make the customer feel special. I was always quite amused at the Paris Fabric Fair, where I always tried to buy some fabrics from Scottish manufacturers. After visiting the Italians, where they often had amazing presentations, you were welcomed as an honoured guest, offered refreshments in the best way of Italian products, wine, cookies, chocolate, cheese, We would then go on to the Scottish tweed stands. They were often quite grubby and depressing. And it was actually embarrassing for me. I dragged my team along and said, come on, we have to buy someone from Scotland. And after getting spoilt from the Italians, you walk onto the Scottish stand where there'd be a Tesco plastic bag in the corner and bad presentation. And although the tweeds were beautiful and we were able to adapt them to suit what we were looking for, we always found something. But you always left the stand with never the same feeling as you left the Italian stands. You never had that feeling that you bought something special. We would actually often go work directly because of time constraints. We would work directly with our fabric suppliers. And we'd visit the most important print and fabric companies ahead of the fabric fairs. Visiting companies like Etro or Ratti in huge villas on the banks of Lake Como to go through their archives was always a fabulous experience. Their archives were amazing, so well curated. They always had things selected for us based on our requirements that we'd given ahead of time. And one time I organised a visit to a tweed company in the Borders in Scotland, where we wanted to search the archives for ideas, only to find that nothing was prepared for us. Nothing. We actually ended up climbing ladders into their attic to go through dusty boxes filled with old samples to find the inspiration we were looking for. So the message here is treat your customer as a valued and special guest. Always try and make their life easier by being well prepared. I would love to work more with Scottish companies. After I left Escada, I actually had the idea that I would love to put all my knowledge and experience that I gained over the years to good use and help Scottish brands promote their brands worldwide. I contacted a lot of them, but most of the time I got no reply at all. And those that did reply didn't know what to do with me. They didn't really see the need to invest in creativity. They didn't want to do anything that was different. They wanted to plod along doing what they'd always done. Thankfully, things are changing now, and companies like Johnsons of Elgin saw the necessity of having a creative director and what added value this could really bring to the brand. In Scotland, we are very, very good at manufacturing for other brands. Knitwear for Chanel, wax trench coats for Prada, Hermes, scarves for Dior. Where we're not so good is taking this amazing heritage we have and developing and nurturing our homegrown talent. The opportunities are there for the taking. Probably my most important message would be believe in what you're doing. Have a strong conviction, but most importantly, invest in creativity. That cannot be stressed enough. It's not enough just to have a good product. It has to be presented in the right way. It has to be presented in a creative way and in a modern way. And of course, I'd be happy to help you with this. If you have any questions, please get in touch with me through the internet, and hopefully I've given you a little bit of inspiration today. I know it's tough times at the moment. Hopefully by giving you a bit of my fashion journey, it's inspired you to carry on with your company it's inspired you to invest in creativity, and hopefully has helped you a little bit in these difficult times. All the best.